Firstly, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Rena and Mona for having me here today. As Mona mentioned, I left the banking industry about 2 years ago, and since then my social media journey as such has embarked. So what I would like to focus on today is really talk about how, for my businesses, me and my business partners have used social media to elevate our online growth and increase our sales and increase our reach online. Before I start, it would be great to see a show of hands of how many people are using social media today for their own businesses. Great, most people. Brilliant. I thought it would be great to start with a quote by Narendra Modi, India's new Prime Minister. He said, "I am a firm believer in the power of technology and social media to communicate with people across the world. I hope this platform creates opportunities to listen, to learn, and to share." And I think it's really fitting given what he has done with his campaign and what he has done since his inauguration already. And you can see on his Twitter, he is engaging in global conversations every single day with millions of people. And it's whether he's talking about local issues in India, whether he's sharing awareness of global health-related issues, but he's using social media as a way to really bring, to engage in that global conversation. So, as we know, back to the real world, we're not all prime ministers of the largest nations in the world. So how can you and I use social media in our everyday business to increase our exposure and our online reach? There's another quote, which is by an entrepreneur called Gary Vaynerchuk in North America, and he says, "Every business is now in the media business." So what does that mean? So when we look at traditional business of print, newspapers, magazines, TV, and radio, we look at ways where as a startup business it was impossible to necessarily have the resources in those times to be able to access those platforms. And today, back then there was a few people like journalists who were publishing to the masses. Now what we have, which is incredible, is that you and I are all publishers of content. So whether we're sharing a photo of our latest holiday on Facebook, we're publishers of content. And so technically every business today, whether you're posting on Facebook, whether you're writing a blog, whether you're on Instagram, you're a publisher of content. And for me that frames the way that we look at social media for our businesses today. So I thought I'd look at 5 things that for us have been really important as startup businesses in increasing our reach. I think the first thing is really the cost effectiveness of using social media. So again, in traditional media, we never really had resources to be able to go and spend on, TV and print on day one. Whereas now you can launch a business without that much money and you can create awareness. And what we did with our yessir.com business was that even before we launched the business, we had set up all of our accounts and we started engaging and we started building our audience. We had our branding up there. We started talking about topics that were relevant to what our target customer base was. And then we kind of created a buzz, so people would ask us on Twitter, what is it that you're launching? Or, when are you launching? And things like that. So before we had even begun, we hadn't spent a penny and we'd already created that initial excitement. So I think that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing, which is amazing, is the way we can target our audiences. So as a business today, compared to traditional media, you can really, really target the audience and the customer base that you want for your business online. And then you can analyze those results in real time, so you can see how your campaigns are working. What we do, for example, on Yessir is we will go into Facebook campaigns and target like men in the UK. We'll look at their interests like keywords like hair, beard, moustache, GQ magazine, anything that we think that our target audience is going to be interested in, and then we can run campaigns to that effect. Also, what we did was we ran for a week a campaign for women in the UK, and we found an increase in sales online just to women who are buying products for their men. So targeting can really, really work if you use it in the right way, and the fact that we have access now to these real-time results, you can adapt and change your campaigns as you go along. So I think that would be the second thing. The other thing is the visual social media. So we now have pictures and we have video. So whether you're on Facebook or Instagram posting a picture, or you're using video on YouTube or Vine, you can really, really tell a story. And I think that that's something that businesses never really had the opportunity to have that sort of platform before. They say by 2017, 69% of all consumer internet traffic will be video. So it's a great way for businesses to tell their story, to engage their audience in many different ways. Like, we launched a YouTube channel just weeks ago where we do how-to videos on getting the perfect shave, or 3 hairstyles out of 1 haircut. But it was what we found was relevant to our target audience, using products that we sell in the store. So through our content, adding value to our target audience. The other thing which I think people often forget is that social media is a great listening and customer service tool. So for us, it's a great way to listen to what your audience is talking about, what they're sharing, the other things that they're doing online. So you really get an insight today into your consumer that you never really had before, and also as a customer service tool. So we use Twitter to answer questions about, is it free delivery in the UK, or what's the best product should we try for hair loss? And, we really use it as a way to enhance the overall customer experience, especially today when we've moved a lot from physical touch and feel businesses to very online businesses. It's a great way to kind of use social media to provide that whole customer experience. And finally, I would say that when you're targeting your audience, then you're publishing content and you're listening to your audience, you have to think about what is it that you're publishing to them. And actually, we publish less than 20% of what we publish is actually about our products, and that content part is key. So we publish everything from, popular quotes that we think our audience would like. We publish, competitions, how-to tips, articles on grooming that we think can be of benefit. But it's about actually talking about the other things that your target audience are interested in, rather than actually just constantly pushing your own product. Because when you get to Facebook and you get the Facebook algorithm deciding how engaging your post is, or how likely your post is going to reach more people, it's all going to be based on those early people that receive your post and whether do they like, share, or comment on it. And in Twitter, it's the same. Are people retweeting and favoriting and getting it out there further and further, so you're increasing your audience in all these stages. So I'd say that one of the large businesses and brands and businesses do is really use the 80-20 marketing rules. So 80% of the time they talk about other things that would interest their customers, and 20% of the time they're talking about what they're actually doing and the products that they sell. Finally, I just thought I'd finish off with some good practice rules that we live by in the businesses. First of all, do your homework. I think it's really important as a startup, especially when resources are limited, to not try and be on every platform at the same time. I'm excited when I see new platforms, and when Vine came about, I really wanted to get on top of it. But you can only do with finite resources a certain number of platforms properly, and you're better off using a few platforms really, really well. So find out where your target audience spends their time, depending on who that audience is for your business, and then make sure you do the best job possible of those particular ones. Second thing, again, consumers today are so busy. They've got content coming on their mobiles, their iPads, their desktops. Soon we'll be doing everything from our watches. And you've got so much content coming from everywhere. So make sure your content's relevant and make sure it's as engageable and shareable as possible. And then the next thing would be really ask yourself every time you put posts out there, is this relevant to my audience? It's almost like a sanity check sometimes to recheck, with your overall marketing campaign, does this make sense right now? The next thing would be careful about what you publish. I don't know how many of you came across the hashtag earlier this year on Twitter, #HasJustineLanded. Did anyone see that? You saw that, yeah. So a British lady on her way boarding a flight to Africa decides to write the most ignorant tweet I've probably seen about how she's on her way to Africa and she hopes she doesn't catch AIDS. Then she gets on the plane. In minutes, Twitter went viral, and millions of people around the world, millions of people in Africa went absolutely crazy while she was sitting probably having a glass of champagne on her flight. Obviously, once she landed, Twitter had removed her account and the tweet. She actually got fired from her job, even though it was from her personal account. I'm sure if she was stayed on in Africa, she was hiding as well. But most important thing, really, think about what you're publishing. And even though there is delete buttons, once it's out there, it's out there. So really make sure that your message is clear. And finally, plan your content. So we use content calendars 2-3 weeks in advance. We'll plan our content so we can really take advantage of big events going on in the world. So for example, with the World Cup, depending what your business is, there are so many ways to use the World Cup as a world event where you can tailor to your market. So if you were a restaurant in London, you could create a Brazilian cocktail list, especially for the World Cup, and use the World Cup to do that. If you're a travel company, you could be sharing in advance content and tips on what to be doing when you're traveling on holiday in Brazil. So there's so many different ways to use single world events that if you plan in advance and you plan your content strategy accordingly, you can really make the most of it. And finally, on that note, I'd just like to say in summary that it's really, social media, the era that we're in today is a really exciting era. Barriers to entry are lower than ever. We've got amazing platforms out there that you can really use to create a powerful voice for yourselves and for your businesses. Yeah, that's really it from me. And I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for listening to me this evening. Thank you.